3 million pages of explosive secrets just ignited the biggest legal and political firestorm of the decade
Oh,
there.
absolutely. The fallout is just moving faster than anyone can contain it right now.
Yeah. So, imagine typing a notorious criminal's name into a search engine. You just want a basic summary of the case,
Yeah,
right?
like a Wikipedia link.
Exactly. But instead of handing you a Wikipedia link, the artificial intelligence politely hands you the personal email addresses and private phone numbers of the surviving victims.
It is a complete nightmare scenario.
And last week, that was not some hypothetical nightmare. It was an active feature on Google, powered entirely by a massive catastrophic mistake made by the United States government.
A digital error that is literally turning into a constitutional crisis as we speak.
Yeah. So let me give you the fast, active summary of the situation on the ground right now. The U.S. government tried to release the highly classified Jeffrey Epstein files. They wanted to show maximum transparency to the public. But instead, they accidentally exposed the names and contact information of about 100 sexual abuse survivors.
It's just a devastating failure.
And now the backlash is exploding everywhere. I mean, we see class action lawsuits filed against the federal government. We see unprecedented lawsuits filed against Google.
Yeah, the tech world is panicking.
Oh, totally. Plus, we see fierce, high-stakes congressional hearings filled with shouting matches. We even see articles of impeachment introduced against former Attorney General Pam Bondi.
It's hitting the legal system, tech, and the government, all at exactly the same time.
So we have a massive stack of sources today for our deep dive into this crisis. We are pulling details from legal complaints, news articles, and congressional press releases.
There's a lot to get through.
There is.
Oh.
But before we go any further, I must state something very clearly. These sources contain intense, highly conflicting political accusations from both Democrats and Republicans.
Very intense.
Right, and we are absolutely not taking any sides today. We are not endorsing any of these viewpoints. Our mission is simply to report the facts and the arguments exactly as they appear in the original text.
We are just here to map out the maze, you know.
Exactly. We want you, the listener, to understand the full scope of the fallout so you can process the chaos for yourself. The political claims belong to the politicians.
Yeah, we are just looking at the mechanics of what actually happened.
Okay, let's unpack this. To understand the fierce political chaos happening right now, we first have to examine the massive data dump that started it all.
Right. We have to look at the failure itself.
Yeah, and this entire situation goes back to a new law called the Epstein Files Transparency Act,
which put the Department of Justice on a very strict, legally binding deadline.
Under former Attorney General Pam Bondi and her deputy Todd Blanche.
Right. The DOJ had to release these records by December 19, 2025.
And they didn't release just a few folders of old paperwork. I mean, the volume of this release is hard to comprehend. They released roughly 3 to 3.5 million pages of documents.
It's a staggering amount of information.
It really is. The DOJ stated they were aiming for maximum transparency. They wanted everything out in the open. But the redaction software failed.
Horribly.
Yeah. The DOJ published these files without properly removing highly sensitive information. It is like trying to drink from a fire hose, but the water is toxic.
That's actually a really good way to put it.
And the statistics are just shocking. Approximately 100 survivors had their personally identifiable information exposed to the public.
We're talking about full names, personal email addresses, private phone numbers, even photographs.
I want to stop and look at how a software failure like this actually happens. Like, how does the government accidentally publish secret names?
It's a technical oversight.
Right. From my understanding, a digital document, like a PDF, is basically built like a digital layer cake. The bottom layer is the actual text of the document. The top layer is whatever you put over it, like a digital black marker used for redactions.
That is the perfect way to visualize it.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not permanently fuse or flatten those layers together, the black box is just sitting on top of the text.
So it is like trying to censor a physical letter by putting a piece of black tape over a word, but forgetting that if someone holds the paper up to the light, they can still read the ink underneath.
Exactly. Anyone with a basic computer can just download the file, click on the black box, hit delete, and read the secret names underneath.
But if the government knew their software had these limitations, and they admitted the process was heavily manual and flawed, why rush the release?
Well, that's the big question.
I mean, why dump 3 million pages online if you know the black boxes hiding the names might just peel right off?
What's fascinating here is the impossible tension the Justice Department was caught in. You really have to look at the forces squeezing them from both sides.
Okay, so what were those forces?
On one side, you have the public and Congress screaming for the truth. They want the files immediately. They suspect cover-ups.
Right, maximum transparency.
But on the other side, the government has a strict legal duty to protect crime victims. This falls under the Privacy Act of 1974.
Which regulates how they handle personal information.
Exactly. Yeah. That law strictly regulates how the federal government collects, maintains, and distributes the personal info of private citizens.
So the DOJ is legally required to release the data, but also legally required to hide the victims. You cannot easily do both at the same time, not when you were dealing with 3 million pages.
To prove just how tight this trap was, look at another lawsuit happening at this exact moment. Investigative journalist Katie Fang is actively suing Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche.
Wait, suing him for what?
She is suing him for withholding documents and missing deadlines. She argues the DOJ is over-redacting the files and hiding the truth.
Wow. So the DOJ was completely trapped. Journalists demanded more information, while the victims demanded their legally protected privacy.
Yep, they couldn't win.
And because of all this, a survivor known as Jane Doe 1 filed a lawsuit, right? Which suddenly threatened the entire tech sector's AI ambitions.
Yeah, lawmakers quickly realized they had a much bigger crisis on their hands than just a leaked document.
Because the digital failure didn't just stay on government websites. Modern internet technology grabbed that data and quickly weaponized it. This triggered some truly unprecedented lawsuits.
Once sensitive data hits the open internet, it takes on a life of its own.
It really does. So Jane Doe 1 filed a massive class action lawsuit against the United States. She says the government violated that Privacy Act of 1974.
And because of this lawsuit, the DOJ eventually had to retract 9,500 documents from their public site. They just had to pull them down.
But Jane Doe 1 did not stop at the government. She is also suing Google.
And that specific part of the lawsuit enters totally new legal territory. It is shaking the whole tech industry.
Right. She is suing Google because of a tool called AI mode. The lawsuit claims Google's AI scraped the unredacted files directly from the DOJ website.
Right, before they were taken down.
Yeah. And when users searched for information about Epstein, Google's AI generated unique answers. It actually displayed the victims' names, and it even provided clickable links to email the victims directly.
Which is horrifying. And the lawsuit says Google refused to de-index the material even after they received actual notice from the victims.
Just to define that term quickly, de-indexing means removing a website from a search engine's results, right?
Yes. If a site is de-indexed, you cannot find it through a Google search. And Google refused to do this.
But let me push back on this lawsuit against Google for a second. Isn't Google just a search engine? I mean, suing Google feels like blaming the local public library because an author wrote a bad book.
That's a common defense.
Right. Google did not write the Epstein files. The government wrote them. Google just helped people find them.
That library analogy is exactly how search engines have defended themselves for 20 years. But the legal complaint argues that artificial intelligence completely changes the rules.
How so?
The lawyers for Jane Doe 1 clarify that Google's AI mode does not just point to websites like a traditional search index.
Wait, so if I'm understanding this right, the AI isn't just handing me a library book. It read the book, ripped out the pages with the victims' names, and wrote a brand new executive summary just for me.
That is exactly the mechanism at play. It actively synthesizes data. A traditional search engine is a card catalog. It tells you where the information lives.
Right.
But generative AI reads the information, digests it, and creates a brand new paragraph of conversational text.
Oh, wow.
So the legal argument here is that Google is no longer just a passive library. Because the AI writes a unique answer, Google is acting as a content creator.
Which raises massive questions about tech liability. I mean, how do we treat a tech company when their AI creates new content out of leaked, sensitive data?
Exactly. It's totally uncharted waters.
It takes the government's mistake and packages it with a bow. It actively hands out the victims' emails. And think about what this means for you, the listener.
Right. It affects everyone.
Imagine your local DMV or your healthcare provider updates their computer system. They accidentally put your medical records online. Before they can fix the error, an AI reads it, memorizes it, and starts sharing your medical history with anyone who asks.
That is the threat level we are discussing here.
And just to show how wide this legal net is being cast, there is another major figure suing the government over this data dump.
Oh, yes.
Former President Donald Trump is also suing the federal government. He is seeking $10 billion in personal damages related to this entire situation.
The legal fallout is just coming from every possible direction. AI panic, massive class action lawsuits, and $10 billion damage claims.
Which forced Congress to demand immediate answers. That panic is what dragged top officials into the hot seat in Washington, D.C.
The hearings on Capitol Hill were intense. Let's start with former Attorney General Pam Bondi. She testified behind closed doors to the House Oversight Committee.
Right, and according to the Democrats on that committee, she was not very cooperative. They claim Bondi dodged 15 specific questions.
Which is a lot to dodge.
Yeah. For example, they asked why 0 co-conspirators were indicted under her watch at the Justice Department. They also say she flatly refused to answer any questions regarding Donald Trump.
During that testimony, Bondi defended the DOJ's overall goal of transparency. She said they were just trying to give the public what they wanted.
But what about the mistakes?
Well, when it came to the actual redaction errors, she blamed her deputy, Todd Blanche. She told the committee that Blanche managed the Herculean task of the document release.
She basically said, I was the boss, but he handled the technical details.
Pretty much.
But then anonymous DOJ officials pushed back on her story. They spoke to reporters and disputed her claim. They stated that Bondi personally signed off on the July 2025 memo that formally ended the review process.
So there was a fierce battle of finger-pointing about who actually hit the green light on the toxic files.
But Bondi wasn't the only one facing the heat from lawmakers. FBI Director Kash Patel testified publicly for 5 solid hours.
5 hours of intense questioning. He strongly defended the FBI, stating they released absolutely everything they legally could.
Sitting under those lights for 5 hours is a grueling marathon,
Yeah.
and the tension snapped multiple times. Patel actually got into a fierce shouting match involving expletives with Democrat Eric Swalwell.
Yes, that made a lot of headlines.
When Swalwell slowly repeated a question to mock the FBI director, Patel snapped back and told him to use the alphabet. It was a highly combative atmosphere.
It was incredibly hostile. But Patel also dropped some major news during that hearing. He announced the FBI is launching new investigations.
Wait, investigations into what?
First, they're investigating claims of a forged signature. There's a 2003 birthday book for Jeffrey Epstein that includes a sexually suggestive letter. It is purportedly signed by Donald Trump.
But Trump denies it, right?
Completely denies it is his signature. Patel stated the FBI would look into the Epstein estate for releasing what he called a fake document.
Wow. And Patel also brought up the 2016 Trump-Russia probe during this hearing, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Patel referred to the 2016 investigation into the Trump campaign's ties to Russia as a massive scandal.
So they are looking into that again.
He confirmed the FBI is actively re-examining how that specific investigation started 10 years ago. They are looking at media leaks and classified documents found in burn bags.
It just shows how fractured the room was. I mean, an Epstein hearing suddenly shifts into a fierce debate about the 2016 election.
It really derailed.
But amid all that partisan fighting, there was one rare moment of agreement.
Yes, a very rare moment of bipartisan praise. A Democratic representative took time to commend Patel and the FBI for their work on something called Operation Viper.
What's that?
That is a special task force deployed to combat violent crime in Memphis. Even in a deeply polarized, angry room, they found common ground on local law enforcement efforts.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's go back to Pam Bondi's closed-door testimony for a second. There was a bizarre detail that leaked out of that room. Lawmakers asked her about Ghislaine Maxwell.
Right, Epstein's main accomplice.
Yeah, and she was recently transferred to a much more comfortable prison facility. Bondi claimed she only found out about the transfer by reading about it in the news.
That is a stunning admission from a top official.
I had to read that line twice. She was the Attorney General of the United States at the time. She ran the department that oversees the federal prisons. How does the head of the Justice Department learn about a high-profile prison transfer from the morning paper?
It highlights a classic Washington survival strategy. When the political pressure gets too high, officials start shifting blame and creating distance between themselves and the controversy.
Yeah, distance is key.
Bondi distances herself from the massive redaction errors by pointing the finger at Todd Blanche. She distances herself from the highly controversial Maxwell transfer by saying she watched it on the news like everyone else.
It's all defensive.
Exactly. If we look at Patel and Bondi, their highly defensive postures are a direct result of the sheer pressure of this crisis. A failure of this magnitude destroys careers. No one wants to be caught holding the bag.
And because these hearings produced a lot more finger-pointing than actual answers, furious lawmakers decided to take the ultimate constitutional step.
Right. The lack of accountability pushed them over the edge.
They moved forward with the push for impeachment. Representative Summer Lee, strongly supported by Representative Yasamin Ansari and several other lawmakers, formally introduced articles of impeachment against Pam Bondi.
The charges they laid out in the official documents are severe. They accuse Bondi of defying congressional subpoenas to release the unredacted files earlier.
What else?
They accuse her of firing career public servants at the DOJ to protect political allies. Representative Ansari went as far as calling Bondi's actions the most egregious cover-up in U.S. history.
I have to ask a basic clarifying question here regarding the mechanics of this move. President Trump already fired Pam Bondi back in April.
That's right.
She literally does not work at the Justice Department anymore. So, how do you impeach someone who has already lost their job? What is the practical point of this?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, impeachment is not just about physically removing someone from an office. It carries immense symbolic and legal weight.
Setting a precedent.
Exactly. By impeaching a former official, lawmakers are trying to set a permanent historical precedent. They are formally condemning what they see as the politicization of the justice system.
So it's about the record.
Right. They want it carved into the permanent congressional record that this behavior is unacceptable, even if the person in question is already gone. It is about establishing rules for the future.
It is about drawing a hard line in the history books so the next person knows the boundary. And again, just to remind you, as you listen, we are reporting these intense partisan allegations directly from the source documents.
Yes, claims of cover-ups, political weaponization, and misconduct are flying from both sides of the aisle.
Exactly. And we are not endorsing either side's political claims today. We just want you to see exactly how high the temperature is in Washington right now and how these factions are battling over the fallout.
The system is stressed to its absolute limits. Every branch of government is currently fighting over who is responsible.
So let's step back and look at the whole board. Let's trace the dominoes one more time. The government faced a legal mandate designed to create maximum transparency.
Right.
They tried to release 3 million pages of secrets, but they used a flawed digital process. A software error, basically failing to flatten a PDF file, broke the privacy of roughly 100 sexual abuse survivors.
A huge failure.
And that single mistake triggered massive multi-billion-dollar lawsuits against the federal government. It also triggered a totally unprecedented lawsuit against Google because their artificial intelligence